Coffee with Kay, where we're going to make sure the coffee is always served strong, but it's also going to come with a side of truth, and that's truth with a capital T. The truth of God, that is. I'm here to equip and encourage you, Saint. Yep, that's right, you. And if you're not familiar with the sainthood, I want to teach you what it is, and I want to invite you to the family. So, let's get right into it.
Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race for you. Monday, happy, happy days. Tuesday, happy, happy days. Monday, happy, happy days. Tuesday, happy, happy days.
Okay, welcome back to Coffee with Kay. If you're new here, this is the first official video that I've finally gotten to have on this platform. If you're seasoned, thanks for listening, even though I just had, like a little picture, like photo picture with, my face on it and little audio warbles. I appreciate you still showing up and listening, even though I'm sure that wasn't exciting to look at. But, we gotta do what we gotta do. We gotta do with what we've got. So, welcome back. Episode 4, An Ode to My 20s. You guys took a vote on Instagram what topic I should cover today, and the vote that won was finances in your 20s. So if you follow me online, if you are on my social media, then you would know that last week I was ushered into the wonderful phase. I will say it was an eventful day, but not necessarily in a good way. It was eventful because I woke up with a horrendous stomach bug. Horrendous. I was in bed from like Wednesday to Saturday. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was the worst birthday ever. But maybe I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity to redo it or whatever, whenever we have the time or the chance. Or I don't even care anymore. I don't even want to talk about it. It just sucks. So I want to redo. I want to redo so bad. I want to go to like Seaside or something bougie that these content creators do. Come on. Anyway, it's okay. I'll be content. Glad for another year. I'm glad for another decade. Hopefully learn some more stuff. So, and like survive, right? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of my motto. Is like, did we live though? We did. We're here. Whatever. Okay, so finances in your... If you also have followed my blog and my Instagram for the past couple years, I have been pretty open about sharing about our debt freedom journey and like how we live an affordable lifestyle, living below your means, and blah, 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 blah. I really like learning about finances. When I was younger, I didn't care. When we first got married, I did not care. Big mistake, right? I think now it's actually really fun. And honestly, if anybody's going to be making money, everybody should know how to handle money and manage money properly. It is so important. Why would you get this tool that you don't know how to be responsible with that you can abuse? Hello, financial education is a must. So, in this season, or in this episode today, I'm going to kind of break it down into 3 sections. So the first section will be like my early 20s, specifically before I got married. So if you guys are college age, really young 20s, maybe you're not in college, maybe you're living on your own, working or whatever, then like this set is totally tailored for you. Okay, so then the middle section, the middle like 10-ish minutes, is going to be when we got married and just some of the big financial mistakes that we started getting into, right? And then the last section is going to be like how we got out of those financial mistakes and then like what the last couple years of my 20s looked like, especially once we got out of debt and some of the big lessons I learned. So there's going to be some like really big, my word, if there's anything you hear from this podcast, it's like, please don't do this, learn from me type of lessons. And then there's also going to be like some just genuinely fun tidbits. Okay, so we're going to dive right in, right? So 20. When I was 20, if you listen to the past episodes, also this season, it's going to kind of like, it's going to be layered, right? So we start off with I think just where I was entering my 20s. And then we talk about my plans. Now we're talking about finances. So everything is going to kind of like stack on each other. So by the end of the season, you should have a really good idea of like my life journey thus far and also some just really big takeaways. So make sure you listen to from beginning to end, like, because that will really help you understand what I'm talking about too. So you don't miss out a single detail. So My 20s. When I was 20, I was a junior in college. I've talked about this before. I got a full ride scholarship to school. That's how I chose the school that I got accepted to because they gave me the most money, and that's how I needed to decide how I was going to school. Because if I wasn't getting scholarships or grants, I wasn't going to go to school. And that's just that. So I went to Texas Women's University in North Texas. It's like 40 minutes north of Dallas in a little town called Denton. So after I got my life together, after I nearly destroyed it my freshman and sophomore year, I went back to school my junior year. I lived in like a little not little, it was pretty big, a 4-bedroom house with some roommates from church and like different churches and just different mutual friends. This house, we would swap out roommates over the years. So I lived in that little house. It was like $250 a month. I did not have a car. My car had gotten stolen the summer before, so I rode a bike to school, or I took the little city bus that had a bus stop like down the street from my house and dropped me off right in front of my building. And that cost like $1 or $2 to ride the bus. And then sometimes I would bum rides with my roommates to get to school if they were going to school early with me that day. So that's how I got around. I shopped at the little grocery store in town, and I would usually go with my roommates, or sometimes I'm sure I probably took the bus sometimes to get to the grocery store. And I mean, I had like a very, very, very marginal budget for groceries. It was probably something like $40 a week or something like that. I had a little on-campus job because I could only work on campus because I did not have a car. So if you worked on campus, which was great, it was a great job, you could only work up to 20 hours a month. Maybe a week. Maybe a month. I really can't remember now. It is 20 hours a month doesn't sound right, but it was something very minimal. Anyway, I made like $10 an hour. I think at the end of the month, I made probably like $500. So I really think it might have been 20 hours a month. It really was not a lot. And so I was able to make a little extra money on the side on top of my scholarships and grants. First major takeaway: don't take out student loans. It's like my biggest regret, right? I had a full ride to school, and I took out a subsidized government loan. My mom had told me to do it just in case. I really shouldn't have done it because I had a full ride to school. I did not need it, and then I had totally wasted that money my first 2 years of school. So my junior year, when I kind of like got my life together and was like being just a lot more responsible, I was like, I'm not taking out any more loans. And I had literally just enough, because I lost some of my scholarships because I was such a bad student those first 2 years. But I had just enough scholarships, like private scholarships and government grants left over that I had not lost, praise the Lord, that covered my tuition and my rent perfectly. And so the money that I made working, I was able to save a little bit. I was able to get clothes here and there when I needed them, or like pay for club fees, and then also buy food. I literally had like no money. I was so poor. But you know, that's also my second takeaway. Your 20s are the time that you should be poor and struggling. Like that is what your 20s are for. I don't know what else you could possibly use your 20s for other than to learn and to get your head on straight. Because if there's anything that I would hate more than have had to struggle so deeply in my 20s, is to be struggling like that in my 40s or my 50s, or when I'm like retirement age because I didn't plan, or I didn't learn, or I didn't educate myself. Like, don't do that, right? Don't be just, ignorant and not try and learn. Learn from people who've gone ahead of you. This is the time to make mistakes. You can make some financial mistakes in your 20s and have time to recover and like not have to spend your adulthood trying to make up for some big expensive mistakes that you made when you're 30 or 40 or 50. So, okay, that's takeaway 2. So, yeah, I'm 20 years old. I'm just slumming it through college, living with my roommates. I eventually got another car. So, I've talked about this before. My first car, it was a 2005 2-door Chevy Cavalier. It was like cobalt blue. I bought it off Craigslist for like $1,500. 2 weeks later, it got stolen. I got scammed. They stole the car back, never to be found ever again. So that sucked. And yeah, that was so fun. Love that for myself. So in 2015, my dad gave me a car. He is a mechanic. He lives in Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut, if you didn't know that. Now you know. So I had a boyfriend, now my husband, and I took him up to Connecticut so he could meet my family, because we've been dating for like 7-8 months now. Things are getting serious. Like, you should probably meet my dad, go meet my family. And so we went up to Connecticut that May, and we drove down the car that my dad gave me. It was like a 2001 Cadillac Seville. I was just talking to some guy at the store about it yesterday, about, because my stupid car alarm kept going off, and I don't know how to work it. I'm so dumb. It's fine. I'm not dumb. I'm just like, I'm tech savvy about like computers. When it's a car, like, I feel like cars and computers should not go together. Like, cars are mechanical. Anyway, off the topic. I couldn't figure out the stupid alarm, and it's going off, and I'm just like, I loved when my Cadillac, like, first off, nobody wanted to steal that. It was cool that it had power windows, and like, it didn't beep at me. That's great. I love when things don't beep at me. So anyway, I had this old Cadillac Seville. It was a boat. My goodness. Couldn't drive it over 65 miles an hour or it'd overheat, but it ran. And so that little guy got me through summer school, which was in the next town over at the community college. And also kind of got me where I needed to go. That guy also got me through summer school, which was the next town over, which was a blessing, because there's no way I would have gotten summer school and finished my degree. Anywho, so that was my early 20s. Got married my senior year of college. I was 21. My husband and I lived in this tiny little, like, vintagey apartment a block or two away from school so I could walk to school. It was like $700 a month. I was still working on campus. He was a occupational therapist tech, and so he was making like $14 an hour. We were broke as no joke. I think together we made like $24,000 or something. I don't know. But we were struggling and we were making it through. And then we ended up moving to Dallas so I could do my internship in Dallas, because we couldn't afford the commute from Denton to Dallas. And then my husband ended up doing another program to get closer to getting his occupational therapy master's degree. So all that was in Dallas. Okay, so this is kind of the middle. This is where we start getting into like financial warbly territory. So we bought a car. We had bought a car not long after we got married, maybe like 6 months after, before we moved to Dallas, because I would need a car to get to my internship. And we live in Dallas. And so we were like really broke, and my husband really wanted to take care of me. And so we bought this Honda Accord, this used Honda Accord. It was like, $10,000 more than we had any business spending at the time, because again, we made like $24,000 a year, and we bought like a $12,000 car. I don't know why the person let us do that. I wish salespeople were not so like icky, like criminally, because that's just mean. We had no business getting that car. We could have probably scraped together $1,000 and got me some clunker and just dealt with it. I actually really wanted a Mini Cooper. My husband's like, we can't afford that. And I'm like, that's kind of, now thinking back, like, that's really silly, because it was like a $4,000 car. It would have been fine. Anyway, don't take out car loans, especially not in your early 20s. Or even after you graduate college and get a big job. Don't do it. They are not worth it. Like Dave Ramsey says, if you are a millionaire and you can afford the depreciation, sure, get it, right? But if you can't, like, you really have no business getting a car. Like, you don't do it. Because that really set us behind. And so, yeah, the next big mistake then was taking out another student loan. So I think I'm on my fourth takeaway. Yeah. So for my husband to do this next program, it was at a private school. And earlier on in our marriage, I was not interested in finances. I didn't care. I was like, you can do it. I don't really care. Now I'm kind of like the head honcho finances in the Price Corporation, because I've gotten really good at it and I like really enjoy it. And I'm pretty particular about our money, because this is my money. Like, don't play with my money. I say that as a stay-at-home mom. Like, my gosh, it's whatever. I really enjoy it now. I enjoy the task and I'm really good at it. Back then I did not, and I would just be like, oh, I trust you, whatever. Don't do that. Takeaway number 5, participate. don't just leave it up to one or the other spouse to make any financial decisions. Like, it has to be a team effort. And whether you really think it or not, you have an opinion. There you have a preference. So educate yourself and make your preferences known to yourself and to your spouse. Work together. So yeah, he signed $20,000-$30,000 to go to this private school because it was a bridge program and he can bridge into his master's, and it was like a fast track, and my goodness, blah, blah, blah. So we started off with like $10,000 student loans, no credit card debt. I had a credit card that I got in college or high school, and I had like an 8th grade math teacher who had always said, get a credit card, put like $25 on it a month and pay it off just to build credit. And that's what I would do. And so my husband had one, and I think he had like a really minimal balance. But yeah, we started off with like $10,000 for my loan, and then about 2 years into our marriage, we were up to like $49,000, which is just so defeating when you're, first making like $25,000 a year. And then once my husband finished that program and became a director of rehab, we're making like 50, 55, 60, but we still like have as much debt as we make in a year. That's really complicated, right? So 2018, we have had our first baby. Our first baby was a budget baby. We waited a year to have a baby. Another takeaway, like, don't wait to have kids just because of money. Now, I mean, if it's like, we are homeless, we don't have money, like, please don't do that. That's not responsible. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. Like, we had an apartment, we had what we needed. We could afford our 4 walls. We were not living in the laps of luxury. That's fine. I had insurance. We had insurance. Medically, everything was covered. It was the least expensive baby we've had out of all of them because I was double insured because I was like 22, so I was still under my mom's insurance. It was great. We ended up using a local pregnancy resource center because they gave out free pregnancy tests, and we found out, I think like the day before Christmas, we were pregnant. And so we were trying to like get to a store to get a pregnancy test, and this place was open and it was free, and they let us keep coming back and taking parenting classes. And if you took parenting classes and like came regularly, you could get, they had like little baby books, and so you could get diapers for free and clothes, and there was a consignment store. You could buy stuff from the consignment store at a discount. So we had free diapers, we had free car seats, and then like when we had our baby shower, we did not need anything for this baby. I think we maybe bought a secondhand crib. And yeah, it was so affordable. So we really felt convicted to like not let that stop us from having kids. So, but that also didn't quite change our perspective on finances, which is another huge takeaway. It was probably 2 years into that we stopped being Ramsey-ish. We had been gifted Ramsey's financial piece when we got engaged. We cut up our credit cards, but then I think we got another one later on. Don't remember why, don't remember which one, but we were Ramsey-ish. Like, we kept a budget, but it was just very loosey-goosey. And then we took out loans for the car and for school. So we were not like, yeah, let's do this plan, let's follow this plan, let's like get out of debt and stay out of debt and build wealth. 2018 came. That's when I'm pretty sure that's the last time I used a credit card. I went to San Diego for a high school friend's wedding. I took one of my best friends with me because she and her husband, I knew they did financial peace. They didn't have kids. They had 2 incomes. And I knew she could swing the trip. And it was a super budget trip. I mean, we probably spent a couple $100. We flew Spirit, went to San Diego for a couple days. But I used my credit card, and I felt like it was really important. My husband was like, yeah, go. You should go support your friend, be there for your friend, and have fun with your friend. And so I took my son, he was like 9 months old. And that's when it really hit me that like, we really needed to get together. So my friend and I got like tattoos, right? And I always just feel like, man, that was really stupid. I mean, it was only $60, but I got a tattoo on a credit card. And I was like, this is kind of not smart. This is not smart. And I don't really want to keep doing this. And so, yeah, we moved around a lot to try like an afford life. So like we could afford sending my husband back to school and all this stuff. 2018 was when we got really serious about Dave Ramsey. So we wrote out our debts, smallest to largest. And I still have the paper. I saved it. There's pictures of it online, I'm sure. But yeah, we had racked up like $49,000 debt. And we're like, okay. let's get to it. And then I kid you not, I wrote about this on my blog earlier this spring with a little travel series. My husband the next week wanted to surprise me by taking me on a cruise because there was like some really good deal. And I was like, we just decided we were going to pay off debt. We cannot put money towards a cruise right now. Like that's crazy. You have to cancel that. So he did. Praise the Lord. And we got some of that money back, and then he got a credit, and it took us from 2018 to this spring to actually finally go on a cruise. When we got out of debt in 2020, we were finally going to take that cruise, and we rebooked it and, paid in cash, and then the pandemic hit. And so we never got to go on that cruise until this past spring we went to Cozumel. And yeah, we paid cash. It was great. We got to go on our cruise and experience this first opportunity for together. I'd never been on a cruise, he had. But yeah, you vacation differently when you don't have to pay for it when you come home. I will say that all day and night because it is so true. You can actually enjoy your trip, your vacation when you know it's paid for and you're paying out of pocket or you've saved for it. And when you go home, you don't have to worry about paying on the back end for months or years to come. And then you're gonna spend only what you've got. You're gonna vacation at the speed of cash. 2018, we got really into Financial Peace, that Dave Ramsey program. That's also when we moved to East Texas because North Texas was getting really expensive and we were really serious about getting out of debt and we could not afford to live up there. I think our rent, we lived in this horrible little cottage for 6 months and then we were finally able to get out of the lease. And I think this little tiny 900 square foot crappy cottage that ended up being a safety hazard was $1,200-$1,300 a month, which was a lot of money then. We had just been living in this adorable mid-century modern house, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, real house, gorgeous house. The owner sold it, which is how we ended up in the little cottage, for the same price, right? And this was a step down and not any cheaper. We couldn't find anything in our budget. I mean, we probably were making $4,000 a month or so. And the cheapest thing we could find in North Texas at that time, this was when the housing market started to boom. The rental prices just hiked up and everything was $1,700. Just to have a safe, normal house. This is not anything fancy. This is a bare bones rental house. That's over a quarter of our income. Do not spend over 25% of your income on rent or your mortgage. Don't do that. You will be house poor. You will be rent poor. You do not want that. Don't do that to yourself. Stay within your means. Rent if you need to rent. Buy when you can and save up or make sacrifices. So we ended up making a lot of sacrifices when we moved to East Texas. At first, we lived with my husband's parents for 3 months so we could have my husband find a job and save up some money and be able to qualify for a rental house. It was not comfortable. It was not my favorite experience, and I just had to bite my tongue and get through it. So we also had finally paid off our car by then. So I think it probably took us 6-7 months of being super, super diligent to pay off that first car. And then we moved to East Texas and we immediately sold it. Okay, next takeaway. I think we're on takeaway 7. If you sell a car, let it be a profit, Okay, so we sold that Honda Accord. By the time we sold it, I think it was worth $8,800. And we did private sell because, do not sell your car to a dealer. They will give you half what the car is worth. Go on Kelley Blue Book, learn how much your car is worth to sell it private. Then you take pictures of your car, you put it on Facebook Marketplace, and you sell that homie. That's how you do it, okay? And if you ever buy a used car, you go to Facebook Marketplace and you buy a car. You don't go to the dealership. They're not going to cut you a deal. They're not trying to help you out. Do not buy a car from a dealership unless you're really well-to-do and you're buying a brand new car. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, right? So we sold that Honda and we took the cash and went to a dealership and bought a used Chevy Equinox. And a month later, the check engine light turns on and is an engine failure. So they sold us a lemon. And we had to work for a month to get this dealership to take the car back because we were going to go to the news and tell the news so people would stop shopping there. And then they finally gave in and gave us $7,000 of the car back. Whatever we spent on taxes, we lost. And so we were oh wait, okay. We should save some of this money and buy something a little cheaper. So we went on Facebook Marketplace and we found a 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan because we're pregnant with our second kid and we don't know how long it's going to take for us to get out of debt and we want to have space. We do like mentoring with teen parents, so we're always giving kids rides, and it's so helpful to have a car that has space where we can give kids rides with this program we volunteer with. And so we went and got the minivan. Okay, get the minivan. They're not cute. Get the minivan. They're more reliable too than those silly little SUVs right now because they just don't make them like. Anyway, we're not going to talk about cars right now. I'm not on that track. Stay focused. So we get our little Honda Odyssey and we pocket like $2,000, spend like $5,000 on that car. A lot of people, will argue, well, it's not reliable, it's not safe. It is reliable, it is safe. You go to a town. We found this car maybe an hour away, went to the town, found a reputable mechanic in that town. You call the mechanic, you say, hey, I'm buying a car. Can we please, usually you meet the seller at the mechanic so you can take the car immediately to the mechanic and they do this whole little analysis that's like specifically for people who are buying cars. And then they can tell you if there's any problems that come up or not, or like what you can expect to have to, I almost said edit, to change, like fix mechanically speaking. And if it's, okay, don't buy this car, do buy this car. This car has this really severe issue, don't buy it. Or this car is like, it's fine. That car passed. And we left and we bought it. So that worked out fantastic. And we had that car until last summer. It finally bit the dust. I drove her until the wheels fell off. I think we got like $1,000 back for that minivan, which was fine. That was $1,000 more than we had. And then we bought our new minivan. And yeah, it's paid for in cash. We don't have a loan on it. Like we're not paying car payments on it. We will never pay car payment ever again, right? Huge takeaway. Don't take out a car payment. It's not worth it. I don't care if you have 0% interest. Don't do it. Like if you have the money, do it the right way, right? Baby steps. So another takeaway, I always say like your 20s, that's the time. I think I said this already, but that's the time to struggle, right? Now is the time to drive beaters. Like I don't really, like I would not prefer to have to be like 30, 40, 50 driving a beater. It's whatever. But like, my hope is that when I'm 50, I'll have like a little Mercedes and a Chanel bag. Okay. Like that's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm hoping to have in the future. Cause it's going to take time. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take money. It's going to take effort. And I don't have that right now, which is totally fine. It's just realistic. And so, yeah, just living within your means for what you've got is normal. That's normal. That's the problem with debt is that it lets you look like somebody you're not when you can't be that person yet. And the only person you're hurting is yourself. And people might think something about you. Oh, wow, this person's got this. They must have that. They've got that. They must have this. And there's a whole different storyline playing in the background. And you're over here underwater, just dying and breathing. Like can't catch a breath because you're way in over your head. And you don't have to do that because you're worried about what other people think about you. Why don't you just worry about yourself? You know what I'm saying? Don't do it. So it took us about 2.5 years to get out of debt. And that was attributed to this factor. So when we moved to East Texas, we found our little rental house, sold our car. I had a little part-time job. I used to be a varsity high school swim coach. I did that for about 2 years before I stopped. Right before the pandemic, we ended up moving out of that little rental house because my husband got into grad school. That was always his dream. He always wanted to be an OT, like get his master's in occupational therapy. And so he got into this bridge program and we know better. We're paying in cash. And I was like, if you really want to do this right now, we have to move because we will not be able to pay cash for school and pay rent and like pay off our debt. Like it's not possible. So he had this girlfriend in college back when he lived in East Texas before me. And my husband's like 4 years older than me, by the way, if you didn't know that. So he had a girlfriend and she used to like live with this family who were doctors and she would help babysit and like kind of in return, not really in return. They had a garage apartment that she lived in. And so my husband remembered that and he remembered where this family lived and everything. So I was like, is there any way you would mind going back and asking that family if we could live in that garage apartment, because we're gonna have to pull some crazy strings to make this work if this is what you really want to do. And he found them, and they were they're still really nice and stuff. They were fine, but basically, like, we have 2 kids now. It's not gonna be suitable, and I think somebody was like living in it too. I really don't remember, but he was like, well, my brother and his wife, they just bought a house, and it has a barn condo, like a barn dominium. So, like, I can connect y'all. Maybe that will work. Okay, well, it did work. And so it was like a 1,400 square foot barn condo, great condition. They let us do like a little tiny flip, and we moved in the day before the shutdown. And that condo was $800. $800. And that was, first off, we were like, okay, the point of Dave Ramsey is to one day, like, live and give like no one else. And one day, someday, we want to be able to be that couple that has the guest house or the barn condo that can let a young couple trying to get their way, like make their way through life, live there for $800. Because we don't need the money, right? But they have to work for it. And then it gets even better, y'all. If my husband mowed the lawn, if each time he mowed the lawn, it took off like $150 because they had like 2 acres and they both, worked and stuff. So we paid $500 a month for that condo. $500 a month in 2020. Like, that's insane. So we knew it was a huge blessing. Yes, it was challenging. It was weird living in somebody's garage. It was weird inviting friends over, and it wasn't glamorous. It was a cute spot, but it was a very humbling experience. But because of that steamrolled our debt payoff. So we got out of debt at the end of 2020, which was amazing. $49,000 of debt in 2.5 years. I think the most income that we made in those 2 years was maybe like 65. I think that was like probably our cap, roundabouts. I really don't remember. And so, we got out of debt and we just started saving, because that's the baby steps. You build your emergency fund, 36 months expenses. We did that. Okay, next is like, if you want a house, you save up for a down payment. So we lived in that barn for about 15 months, and then we were asked to leave because they didn't want to do it anymore and they needed us to go. And so I was like, let's live in a camper, because that was all the rage. And so takeaway, I think we're at like number 9 or 10. The camper life really is not that glamorous. It's really not that cute. My husband and I have said, like, maybe when we're older and like our kids are out of the house, we could get like a nice RV and like be snowbirds and go travel. But when you have 2 kids, 2 and 4 years old, and you're pregnant and you're flipping a camper, like, that's not the time. That's not the time. And another takeaway is, like, we dipped into our emergency fund to supplement the cost of this camper. I think I found it on Facebook for like $6,000. And we should not have bought it. There were so many telltale signs and like instincts that I just pushed aside, and I'm like, this is great, we'll do it. And then it ended up having like roof issues and leaking. We had to replace the roof. It was a whole thing. And then we saved up and we bought some land, because that was part of our dream. We really wanted to buy land and like live on land. So we saved up, I think we saved up 10 or 20% and found some land. We have 6.5 acres. We got an incredible deal. It was also in 2021, right before everything skyrocketed. So, I mean, we just found this thing at the perfect time. Incredible opportunity. And the plan was to live on our land while we built our house in this camper. Well, the end of that year, or that summer when we would have started building, we got scammed by a client. So if you also didn't know, my husband and I run a general contracting handyman company, remodeling company out in East Texas. It's called My Guy. So this was the very beginnings of My Guy. We had a client, did a really big project for them, and she would scam insurance basically. And so we finished this project, this huge remodel, and then she didn't want to pay. And it was like over $10,000. We ended up having to sue her, and we never got all the money back. It was just a huge ordeal, so stressful. It was horrible. And that was our down payment. So just everything fell apart on that summer. And I was pregnant. We were having another home birth, and we needed to have a home to birth in, and our house wasn't going to be built, and like the camper was not working out, and I'm also not having a baby in a camper. So we found a rental house, and we moved into that rental house, I think like September or so, and I had our son in November. Then we finished flipping the camper. Also, living in a camper while you're flipping it is not fun. And also, anything with wheels depreciates, including campers and RVs. Don't put your money in a camper and an RV. You are going to lose it. So we ended up flipping it, and that brought up the value of it. But I mean, we just barely made what we spent on that camper back. I mean, I think we maybe made a profit of like $200. And it took forever to sell. And it was like, oh, are we even going to sell this? We have so much money wrapped into it. So we finally sold it like a couple months after we had our baby and never looked back. Like I said, when we're rich and older and want to do that and can afford to have something nice, then fine. Maybe we'll do that and go travel more, but no, not living in a camper. Not living in a camper. Never, never, never. And I say that because we lived in a camper again when we built our house. The last couple weeks of building our house, we borrowed our friend's camper and lived on our property until our house was finished, and we moved into our house half finished and lived in that camper for 3 weeks, and well, no, almost a whole month. And we disliked it just as much the second time around, and we would still never live in a camper. So yeah, it's not as cute as it seems. So then once we got all that under wraps, things finally started getting a little better. And that's kind of like the mid section of finances in our 20s. So like a ton of takeaways. One, we always, I mean, we're probably on takeaway 11 now, so it's not really one. We've always put generosity at the top. That is something you learn in financial peace. That is something that we hold so valuable from the beginning of our marriage. We've always tithed off of what we did have, even when it wasn't a lot. And then we also kind of do it a little differently. So I know some people are like, you have to give 10% and this, that, that's what the Bible says. And the Bible doesn't say like, you have to give this. Like, that's not the point. So we kind of do like, we tithe 10% in total, but we break it down. So like maybe a quarter or like a third of that we give to our local church. And then that gives us like another 2/3 of tithing money that we give to different organizations and charities. We have like a miscellaneous giving that we set aside within that 10%. So like if we want to buy somebody a meal, or if we feel compelled to like buy somebody like a fake book, or like we'll go buy Bibles and keep them in our cars and hand out Bibles. Or I used to do blessing bags. I would put together blessing bags for homeless people and keep them in my trunk or my back seat and give out blessing bags. And so like that's how we handle tithing. But generosity has always been number one. We've been their scepters of people who have been incredibly generous with us, especially while we were on our debt-free journey, and just knowing how impactful that is and how far that trickles down. And it's not like we want to look good and feel blessed, but like we know how it feels to be blessed, and we want to be able to bless people when we have a lot and when we have a little. So we always make space for that. Okay, so takeaway 12 is don't buy into trends. Yeah, definitely. I think we considered renting a camper and we just couldn't find one. But if anything, you know, say you really wanted to live in a camper or something like that, maybe go rent one or borrow one. Like, don't go buy one, and definitely don't go into debt for one. That's crazy. You will never get that money back. Taking time to financially educate yourself. So this is kind of going to be the last segment, like my grand takeaways, the way that I ended my 20s. And it's going to kind of lead into the next episode, which is going to be traveling in your 20s, and that's going to follow pretty chronologically with this episode, because money and travel goes hand in hand. You have to have money to go travel. And so, but I also like being generous. I never really wanted to sacrifice traveling to be debt free. And so that expectation looked a lot different working off of, you know, a couple extra dollars here or there, right? When we did get to go travel, like we were camping and we were going on family trips, like my husband's family would go on a little family trip. And so that was kind of our opportunity to travel, or we might be able to swing a weekend trip to Austin. And so I'm going to talk about that more in the next episode. But yeah, to like cap off our 20s, so we had our emergency fund, and I say had because when we built our house, we had another really big business issue that really affected our income. So even though we built a very budget house, a lot of it we were doing in cash, and we had to save our company. And so we ended up actually having to take out a loan from a family member to finish our house so the bank would close our construction loan and we could just start paying the mortgage. And that was horrific. Honestly, it sucked so much because we had worked so hard to get our emergency fund. We had started contributing to retirement. We had started contributing to our kids' college. And then, like, our life blew up in our faces. I kid you not, it just blew up. And everything went out the window. And so the emergency fund went towards finishing the house because we had to finish the house. And then I had health issues, and we were bouncing around living in Airbnbs for like 6 months and then trying to salvage our business. And we had a new baby. I mean, it was so stressful. I even tried going back to work to help, and I couldn't even do that properly. And so I didn't even get to work, and I haven't worked since. So another, like I told a friend recently who just started their baby steps journey that I feel like you don't hear a lot about people who are on the baby steps like journey and then have like some really big issues hit. And one, Dave Ramsey will say like, well, yeah, that's why you have an emergency fund. And yes, it is. But all that, the last couple years of my 20s, I'll say like 28 to 29 or 27 to 29, that was a very humbling journey. We had worked so hard, and we were just really proud of where we had gotten to in life, and then everything collapsed. And a lot of it was out of our control. It wasn't like we were making such bad financial decisions. We were making good financial decisions, and then everything, like all of 7 of Murphy's Laws hit within a 2-month period. And so it was unbelievably stressful. And I also just felt so ashamed that like, wow, we worked so hard for this, and now we have to go back to baby step 2 because we had to start over. And that felt so defeating. And I felt like such a loser. And then also like taking out a loan to finish the house. It wasn't a lot, but it was just enough to get the major stuff done so the bank would approve our loan and we could start paying our mortgage. And then everything else that we did in our house that wasn't finished has been cash since we moved in summer 2023. So we move at the speed of cash, and we've just picked back up where we left off. So we've been really focused on finishing our house because we have to finish our house. And we're doing it at the speed of cash and like taking heed of raising our kids. Gosh, that's what I was trying to say. So like anything in our budget has not been luxurious. Like, yes, we went on a trip. I argued that I'm glad my husband finally took us on a cruise, but he and his best friend, his best friend convinced him to take us, and he had not consulted me, and it was another surprise. You see the trend here. And if he had consulted me, I'd be like, yeah, we don't need to go on a cruise right now. He didn't consult me, so I didn't get to be part of that decision, and whatever. It was a fun cruise. I think it would have been funner if it had been later on. But it's fine. The Lord works things out, and it's going to be okay. So yeah, we're almost finished paying off that family member. We've been working so hard to get that loan out of our lives because we do not like debt. We do not like being in debt, and just trying to move on with our lives and like getting ready to have a 4th baby. Like I said, I home birth. We use midwives, and that's out of pocket. So like we have to have cash and save up money, and we'd be very diligent. Yeah, even at the end of my 20s, at the end of our 20s, it's looked a lot like working really hard and living way below our means so that we can get forward in life. And I think it is so challenging in this day and age because you're on social media. When I was in college, when we were first married, social media was not such a big thing. That was back in 2016. I think 2017, 2018 was when it started getting really big and you started seeing influencers and stuff. And it's just so easy to compare or just be like, wow, like How are they there? They're a couple years older than me, and they have all, and I have none. One, 70%, 75% of Americans live with credit card debt. So 3 out of 4 people that you see that look like they have it all do not have it all. They do not own what they have. They are in debt. And like I said, we did everything right, and our life still blew up in our faces. But we had a foundation, we had a pad to land on. If that pad isn't there, our lives could have been looking completely different lately. And that happens to a lot of people. And don't think it can't ever happen to you, because it can. And sometimes it's in your control and sometimes it's not in your control. But what is in your control is making sure that you're covered, right? Covering your own bases. And so, and nobody can do that other than you. It's your life. You have to be the responsible one. So sorry. So, yes. My 20s looked a lot like putting on my blinders and really, really trying hard not to peek at like what other people are doing. It's very humbling, but I think, and I know it's going to make me all the stronger for it and have a greater appreciation for if or when we ever like have money again or whatever happens. But also too that like, I already feel like money is not everything. You know, it's a resource. It can get you things that you desire or you want. But if there's anything that the Bible is so clear about, and that I have not experienced having copious amounts of money, but I can just imagine just being able to afford life and afford my 4 walls and my mortgage and my groceries just from that vantage point, that like the things that make you happy are the things that are irreplaceable. Money is replaceable. You can always make more money. And money comes and money goes. But like the things that are not replaceable, people, life experiences, time with your family, your health, your body, like no money in the world can fix those things. No money in the world can change or give you those things. And so like that's truly what matters. And so learning that has been like my grandest takeaway. And so, yeah, I just hope that that was an encouraging and inspiring and an entertaining story for you guys to just learn about what finances have been like in my 20s and like my biggest takeaways. So I will see you next week because I've got a camera now. This is my temporary studio until my office is ready. So I'm sorry that you probably hear my dog snoring because she does that. And I don't have my quiet office yet. But next week I will see you again, and we're going to be talking about traveling in your 20s. And that's going to be so fun. I love to travel. I love to write. I love to travel, and I love my kids and I love my kids and my family. Like those are my top 3 favorite things. And so I've gotten to have some really cool traveling experiences in my 20s. But like I said, I also think that I've had some very humble traveling experiences in my 20s that have given me a lot of perspective on how to travel within your means and on and so forth. So I'll see you back here, Coffee with Kay, next week. My episodes drop on Fridays. You can always suggest some podcast topics online. Send me an email, info@wildlyrootedministry.org. I'm on Instagram, mama_K_prize. That's my same handle on my threads or my Twitter, and then my Facebook. So yeah, there's always so many ways to get in touch. And now I've been on YouTube, but I finally will have videos on YouTube. So I'm looking forward to having some more stuff in addition, maybe in the near future. So until then, I'll talk to you next week.
Gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me. There's nothing can hold me. Gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold